I'm a loud mouth, so it's good. Everybody just enjoy their meal. We've had another day of trying to get everything worked out here. Teresa Rodriguez from the Lighthouse Foundation, she will go first today when she's ready. I don't want to push you. There are a couple of things I just want to go over. John Chip shared with me Wayne Conley from Conley's Resort. He was a longtime Rotary member, Butler. He passed away, and the obituary is in. Is this today's, John, or yesterday's paper? So I just thought I'd let people know we knew Wayne a long time ago in the area. 69. 69, okay. And John, thanks for sharing the work from the Penny House. I got a copy of what was done there. So Teresa, whenever you're ready.
Well, I'm saving that for after. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and just share a bit about the project that we did together for Penny House. And I will give me 1 second just to pull up the slideshow, and I'll share my screen when the time comes to.
Max got to give you the permission.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. So I just want to share just a little bit. I know that we have talked before about transitional housing, but I just want to share a little bit about this particular program and house. I want to share a story of a young man who has lived in this house, and then we'll share some before and after pictures and talk about the project that you all did with us through the grant that we were given through Rotary Mar. So transitional housing is an opportunity for families and individuals who are homeless or at risk to have a safe place to live and have meaningful programs and support through members of the staff of the Lighthouse and also members of the community who own partner agencies who can provide services that we don't provide. So we have housing for 2-parent families, single-parent families, single men, and single women. So the house that we partnered with was Penny House, and you can see a picture here. This is our young men's house. So this is for men who are 18 to 29, and they are couch surfing on their friend's couch. Their parents kick them out. They are unable to live on their own, or they've just landed themselves in a difficult situation, and we're able to come in and provide that security and safety for them. So this house in particular allows us to provide safe housing for 3 residents. So that's 3 young men. And then on the back of this house is the transitional housing resident manager's apartment. So he is connected to the house, but he's separate. And his job is to make sure that everybody's being safe, that they're following the rules of the program, like curfew and no overnight guests, and that he's building relationships with them throughout the process of them being in our housing. So we are meeting their immediate need of housing, but we also are building relationships with them to enrich and find out where their other needs are, so that if it's something that we can do, or we can direct them to someone who does do that, like if they need some mental health counseling, or if they need some training for a job or a position that would be better than what they're doing, we're able to provide that support. And the resident manager works in conjunction with the case manager to make sure that all of that happens for each resident. So I just want to share very quickly a story about Bennington. We had a young man who came to us. He was about 17 and a half, still in high school, but was not living in the safest environment. He grew up in a 2-parent family, had a sibling, but he was not treated very kindly by his family. And so when he was about, 9, they started threatening to kick him out. And at 17 and a half, they made good on their threat. And he became homeless. He was taken in by a family friend that he met through a church service. He went once and his family just loved him, but they couldn't provide for everything that he needed. And so they called us and said, can you help our friend? He's really in need. Typically, we don't take young men under 18 just because there's a whole legality of it, but because he was kicked out and the parents were pretty clear about not wanting him to come back, we were able to do that. And so we helped Bennington graduate high school. Our staff attended his graduation in lieu of his family, and he stayed in the program for about a year. Residents are able to stay up to 18 months, and he stayed about 14 months before he was able to get into a more permanent situation. But while he was with us, he did jobs training. He found a good paying job. There were people in the community. This kid was such a kind-hearted guy that people just adopted him everywhere he went. You know, they loved him. They wanted to help him. So he received tools and training and did a great job, and now is living in more permanent housing. He has a good support structure around him, and we still get updates from him every now and then, but for the most part, he's self-sufficient and doing well. So he was a huge success story. And although his story was rare for us to have such a young person living with us, it was such a great opportunity for us to see, you know, what we could do with someone who was still battling through the issues of high school, and then, you know, coming into adulthood and just dealing with helping him mature, and what does it look like to be on your own. You know, that's a whole mentality change, and most children get to do that slowly through their, you know, late teens and early 20s with the support of their family, and he didn't have that. So we were able to fill that gap and provide that need. So he was one of our young men who was served through this house, and unfortunately, he didn't get to be served in the house that you guys were able to update for us. He was in the old house the way it was before, but still received great programming and was a huge success. So I'm going to share some pictures. The first couple of slides are going to be before pictures, and I'll just explain what you're looking at, and then we'll look at the after pictures. Yes?
Before you get to the project itself, I just wonder, what requirements do you have for the men while they're in the house?
In housing?
Specific things they have to do
Yes.
in order to stay in the program?
Yes. So in the first month, we help them secure either full-time schooling or a full-time job so that they can start acquiring some money. And then we ask them to set goals. So the case manager sits down with them and says, you know, give us 3 things you want to accomplish. And sometimes they don't know. And we have to kind of help them sort through what does that look like. It can be as simple as, you know, I want to get my driver's license, or I want to take some classes for welding, or, you know, those are the kind of goals that we see to begin with. And so the case manager works beside them to start accomplishing those goals. And as they accomplish goals, they add more goals. So, you know, they're never goal-less, but they are required to adhere to a time where they have to be in by 11 o'clock at night during the week, and I think it's midnight during the weekend. They're allowed to have guests. They can have friends over. They could, you know, have a pizza party if they wanted to, but they are not allowed to have any overnight guests. What we found over the years is that relationships really matter, and so if they are concentrating and focusing on outside relationships and not on what's going on in their own lives, they were less successful. So we found, you know, you can date, you can go out with your friends, but when you come home, you're home, and you're able to kind of recenter and get back to focusing on what you need to focus on. So they need to secure employment. We help them open a bank account. That's not a requirement, but we really encourage it. That helps them to save up some money. They are required to pay a program fee, and the program fee is very, very small. The first month is totally free. The second and third months are $50, and then it goes up $50 every 3 months to no more than $300. that helps them to learn to pay a bill on time. It's kind of like rent, sort of, where it's monthly at the beginning of the month, so they can get into the habit of that. But then at the end of the program, when they graduate, whether they stay the full 18 months or not, if they graduate the program successfully, they are able to get half of that money back to put towards a down payment or security deposit, first month's rent, whatever they would need. So they get a portion. It's sort of like a savings account that we hold for them. And we're excited if they find an apartment and they have saved up enough, then we can help them purchase what they need, furniture or household items with that money also. So the big requirements are the setting of goals, accomplishing of goals, the curfew, and making sure that they're maintaining. They have to take some educational classes. If they have children, they have to take parenting class. Every resident has to take some sort of financial literacy class, whether it's the one we host or there are other agencies in Butler and Allegheny that also do it. But we want to make sure that they understand once they start getting that paycheck, what to do with it. So those are the major requirements of the residents in the housing, and get along with the other residents and be respectful to staff.
And then the max they can stay is 18 months.
18 months, and we will make an allowance for an extra 6 months if they have a special situation. And we've only had to do that a handful since I've been at the White House for the last 10 years. So for the most part, everybody pulls it together. Oh, yes.
Thanks, Dan. I was just gonna do the same thing.
Yes. How do I do that? There we go. Did it work? I want to make sure everybody can see the presentation. Okay. So this is the front of the house. The house is located on East Butler Street, which is up by the hospital. We're actually right across the street from the hospital. So it's a very nice neighborhood. We're right on the street. There's a bus line that passes our house, so they have access to transportation if needed to get to and from work or appointments. If they can't access transportation, then we provide that transportation for them. So the grant that we wrote together was to cover these updates. We were going to pull up the carpet in the living room and dining room, replace the carpeting with new vinyl flooring, replace the ceiling tiles in the living room and kitchen, replace the baseboards in the living room and dining room, and then paint all the walls on the first floor. And we accomplished just about everything here in the time that we were together. So these are the before pictures. When you come in the front door, this is what you see. There's a really nice little fireplace, but as you can see, wood paneling, the ceiling tiles are kind of dingy. The carpet was described to me as having its own personality. Did anybody in this room do this project and actually get to see, so you all know the funk that was on this carpet. We believe it has not been changed since the 70s, and it was pretty terrible. So there's the living room, and this is the dining room. So what's neat about the dining room is the resident manager really tries to connect with the gentleman, and guys, you know, can be kind of difficult to connect with, but we have found that food is the way to connecting with our guys. And so our resident manager here, his name is Ray, he will host family dinners, and this is the spot where he does it. So he comes to their house, their part of the house, and they set up a table and do family dinner together. And not everybody can attend every time, but it's really something special. And so this room, more than the living room, I would say, is a gathering room for our guys. And so we really want to make sure we touched that room as well. And then this is another shot from the living room into the dining room, just so you could see the stairs. Now we didn't get to the steps because everything else was so extensive, but Doug is actually working on finishing up the steps this week. And so when we do our final report for you guys, you'll be able to see that portion done as well. And as you can see, we're still working. So there's kind of things around in the after pictures when we get to that part. So thanks to you all, here is what we were able to do to this space. And what a huge difference it made. This is now the living room. The walls are painted, the ceiling tiles are new, the floor is new, the baseboard is new, and it has new life. This space is inviting. It is, it's amazing. It's bright, and it exudes love, and it goes along with our mission, where I feel that before the dark, the paneling, sort of dingy, did not go along with our mission of providing hope. But this space definitely does. That's the living room. This is another angle of the living room towards the front door. So you can see there are nice windows in this space to let in the natural light. It bounces off the beautiful floor that you all put in. And I know those floors are not easy and not fun. So you did a great job. This is looking from the living room into the dining room. And like I said, this space is so important. There's also a bunch of storage in this space, so it gets used a lot. It gets a lot of traffic through that area. And then this is another angle of the dining room. And just, it looks so much more put together. Just even painting the paneling makes such a big difference in this room. And here's another view from the kitchen, or from the dining room into the living room, so that you could see. So this was the first phase of remodeling this house for our gentleman. The second phase that Doug is working on as he does the steps will be the second floor. And once the whole house is done, we're gonna host an open house, and we would love for you all to get to come and see the final product. But this project, I just wanted to share a little bit. So 12 members of the Rotary volunteered over a 3-day project that got a little extended because it turned out to be a bigger project than any of us really thought it was going to be. So 12 volunteers with 24 work hours, so one whole day of work from beginning to end to do all of these updates. It equals out to 141 volunteer hours. That is something that there's no price that you could put on that. It is invaluable. Volunteering to us is everything. And so I just want to thank you all so much for being a part of this project, not just paying for the actual supplies and what we needed to do the flooring and the ceiling and paint, but to actually be the hands and feet and the muscle to do the work for this project, because I know it was not easy. And we just really appreciate you. And we look forward to giving you the final report. The budget is almost totally spent. I think we spent 2,600 of the 3,000. So the last little bit will be spent on the stairs and then beginning the upstairs. So, and any little updates in the kitchen that need to be done. But I wanted to know if anybody had any questions about this project or our program or the Lighthouse in general.
When's your second floor project gonna be?
He's hoping to start that or to have it finished by the end of this year. I think he's just sort of chipping away at it as we're able to get the stuff that we need to do it. There's no plans right at this moment to do another grant to supply for that. But if anybody is interested, Doug would surely have your help to do any of those projects for sure.
So that might be another project we could work on.
Yes,
Volunteers.
absolutely. We could find a way. Any other questions?
When you explain that, like you did about the young man needing some help, it sure makes us feel good that we were able to participate.
Yes.
And what's Joe, doing some stuff?
Yes.
Joe was here, he's not on the Zoom here.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
I will email him the slideshow, so he'll get to see the pictures that I shared, and I'll share with him Bennington's story as well, so he can hear just the lives that are being changed in this house. And I feel like now the house matches our mission and our heart, and you guys made that happen. So thank you very much. Any other questions?
So back to the, are you at capacity across all of the houses, or?
For particular houses, yes. So the two-parent house and the single-parent house, anything with children has a waiting list right now. The single women's house, I believe, has room for one, and Penny House has room for one. So we do have some openings. And how we get people coming into our housing is through referrals through Catholic Charities. They're the main contact point for homelessness in Butler County. Or another agency would call us and say, I have a person who needs housing, and we would connect them with our director of housing, and he would make that happen. But the reason that everything goes through Catholic Charities is so that we can have good numbers of who's being served in Butler County, and we use that for grants and just to show the need in the community for things like transitional housing. So we do referrals, but you can call straight to our office too if you're in need. So.
One other question, how do the neighbors feel about the house in that area? Sometimes neighbors get a little skittish.
Right. Historically, we have had some pushback when we plant a house somewhere. We've never not been able to come into a neighborhood because the neighbors didn't want us there and really fought back. We've had to really dismay a lot of misunderstanding about what homelessness looks like and who's going to be living in these houses. And I'm not saying that every resident is perfect and they behave perfectly, but we're there to manage their behavior as much as we can. And part of learning to be a good resident with your other fellow residents is also being a good neighbor. And the young men's house specifically is very close to the other houses if you've ever been up on the hill. And these young men have helped neighbors cut grass, they've helped them fix cars. I mean, they have been a part of that community. And so we don't have really any pushback up there, as far as I know, from the neighbors. So they do okay. Yeah. Anything else?
So you may have said this and I missed it. So once they move out at 18 months, or on the odd case, it's 24 months, are you able, do you keep in contact with them? Do they ever reach back to you and say, okay, thank you so much, I'm at this point, like, what's the post?
So every resident that leaves our program, whether they leave successfully or leave on their own terms, is given the opportunity to have 6 months of case management after they leave. So we still case manage them, we still provide support. We really encourage them to come out and volunteer with us after they've left our program, just to be connected in a different way. Because we found that those that we serve like to also serve others, just as an opportunity to be a part of what we're doing and not be the one receiving. And so we really encourage that. But we because we build relationships with them, we do stay in touch with them. And I have residents, I was a resident manager 10 years ago, and I have residents that I still talk to from that time. So we've had residents who've left our program and come back and had to do a second round. Just 3 that I know of, and every single one who came back the second time, a huge success. One girl is our resident manager at Blanchard House. So she was a resident, came through a second time, and she's now our resident manager and on staff with us. So there is extended support for anyone who's served through our programs.
What qualifications are required for your staff members?
For the staff, I guess it depends on the position, but for the most part, there has to be some sort of diploma or education regarding human service for the leadership positions. And then for like resident managers, there's a lot of training that goes along with that position. And so we would just require you to have a heart for what we're doing in missions. And then we sort of train you in how to be a resident manager. Really, it's about the heart of the person for the most part. And there's an extensive, interview process that happens for each position where we're able to just get to know and make sure that they're going to uphold, we are a Christian ministry and we have Jesus in our mission statement. And so there has to be some understanding of you're representing a Christian ministry when you come in to be employed with us. Anything else?
How's your overall funding situation?
For the most
payments or bill payments in. So. Thanks.
Mary, anything that you wanted to bring up?
No, I mean, I'm done with chemo, I have surgery scheduled, but not until after the night of the races, so I hope to see all of you at the night of the races.
Thank you. Great plug for night at the races. I'll just double check. I guess when I send out the link, there's been some issues with it. I was supposed to bring paper copies today, but things went kind of wild at work today, so I didn't get paper copies. But I will send out via email paper copies that you need paper copies to register. We're fine with that.
Yeah, the email I sent out about 11 o'clock, there's a JPEG version, you can just print from there instead of printing from PowerPoint.
Perfect. Thank you, Seth.
Well, that email was to you, me, and Keith, so you're gonna have to send that to the rest of the group.
I'll send that out.
Yeah.
Why don't you take the stage real quick for public?
Sure. So we posted the weekly meetings coming up for the month of March on who our guests will be. Thanks, Roger, on that one. And then the only other thing is I requested from the board for budget to go ahead and seek advertising the Butler Eagle to help promote the night races. Waiting to hear back from Keith Graham to see about ad placement and size. So as of 12/15, we hadn't heard back yet, but we should be able to get that. So stay tuned in the Butler Eagle for hopefully an ad here in the next week or two.
Roger.
We have some interesting programs lined up for the next month and the month after that, and most of May as well. And we're working on June. So any ideas anyone has, please let me know.
Calendar is getting pretty full, and Roger and Chuck have done a wonderful job getting together some of the speakers and the programs we've had. Joe, update for Foundation.
President Dan, the last 28 days, we contributions were made another $464 to the foundation. And the good news, that puts us more than a halfway point to our goal of 12,000. We're past that.
You know, typical of our club, will come in and beat the mark. It'll be in the week before. Lou.
Just real quick, Bethany Christian Services next month. They support Afghan refugees. And so if anybody has any ideas on how we can support Ukrainian refugees, that might be a good opportunity. Shelter boxes is a good way to help them. In fact, Keystone Club, the District E Club, sent out an email to some folks this morning. So they're helping out the refugees with those shelter box centers. That'd be a good place to.
Yeah, and I got an email from Shelter Box last night. What I could do is I could just send it out by email or share it to everybody in the club.
Okay.
But then also Mira from the Keystone Club, through an inquiry from one of the other pastors for governors, had a couple of other organizations that she recommended. She was actually in Kosovo during the war in Kosovo, so she's very familiar with a lot of the organizations over there, and those that would be good organizations that would be able to help for a refugee. So I'll send all that. Actually, what I'll do is I'll send it to you, Lou, and then you can kind of disseminate it from there.
Amy Smith is not here. Membership, we have 6 new members, by the way. Just thought I'd throw that out. We had one member come in, but then she realized that she couldn't, one, afford the time nor the commitment money-wise, so she just kind of stepped away. Send that out as to who the new members are and figure out how to welcome them. Tom Kay.
Well, I got my horses. I'm ready, and we've got a great menu of the future, of course, is going to happen for the time of year that it is. But there is, I think, programs and some other things. Beyond that, we have the installation there at Butler Country Club scheduled for June 29th. So put that on the calendars. We'll try to do another nice affair as we did last time. That's pretty much it for now. We're looking at some possibilities for
Thanks, Tom. Joe Mancuso's not here. Real quick, Tuesday, June 7th, we're going to be working with Hosanna. So I'll put out an email to let folks know to save that date. Joe will have more information on that. And we'll do a highway cleanup in April. And Joe will have a date set for that soon.
I'm gonna, again, one
Go ahead.
June 13th is the golf outing. The only real difference so far with the golf outing this year is we're gonna tee off at 11 instead of noon. But if you guys could all mark your calendars, June 13th.
Thanks, Mary. And last but not least, Brandon Martin, Wednesdays have become difficult for him. He seems to get caught in a work project. So he asked me to update either May 11th or May 18th. We will be doing Students of the Month. We'll figure that out. And then flip-flopping with that, depending on the date that's chosen for Students of the Month, Dave Hine will either do the 11th or the 18th. So we'll have Dave presenting. So I'm excited about having Dave do that. And last but not least, on the youth services, Ryla. So Mars has 2 students that are taken care of. They'll be going to 7280 at Westminster College. And then Pine Richland will still be in school that week. So they will flip-flop and go to 7305 south of us here. And they'll be going to LaRoche College about 3 weeks later. So we'll have Pine Richland and Mars covered, which is very good. The calendar will be updated. There's, I think, just 3 dates that we really have in question. So if you do have any ideas, make sure that Roger and Chuck know about that.
Yeah, for those of you who are newer Rotarians, your children or grandchildren, get them into Rival, they don't have to go through the regular school. It's a great program. I know, Roger, you've got a 17-year-old grandson, right?
Anything else?